All right, today we're gabbing with Olivia Flowers, who you know from her 2 seasons on Southern Charm. Olivia also just recently premiered a new YouTube show called Off Season, which is documenting both her life sort of off of reality TV, but also talking to other reality stars like Ali Luber and Kathryn Dennis. And it's great. Go check it out on her YouTube channel. Olivia, you know I'm excited to have you here to chat about all the things. How are you?
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm good. I'm good. It's really good to see you. It's been a minute.
Yes, I know. So first of all, congratulations on your engagement to Alex. I screamed when I saw it. I was so happy.
Oh my gosh. Thank you. So did I.
No, I think just considering everything that you've gone through in the past year, couple years, like it's especially a blessing, just to have a moment like that, I'm sure.
It is. Yeah, for sure. And he is. That's what I've said about him from day one. He's just been the biggest blessing. And he came in at a very difficult time in my life. And he just such a light to me and my family.
And
So
it hasn't been that long, but is wedding planning already happening? Or are you guys kind of like just enjoying the moment?
well, the fact that I can't make a decision on anything to save my life does not help our situation. It's hard because I call a few different cities home. You know, I grew up in Dallas, I grew up in South Carolina, and so really narrowing down the city has been harder than I
Hmm.
thought it would. So
So it's
yeah,
located. So yeah, and that's the first thing. We got to figure out where we're gonna do it.
the first day, yeah, we know it'll be in North America. That's where we're at so far.
Just have a couple weddings, just
Right? Yeah, that's my go-to. I would rather do it that way.
yes. And not to give too much away, but you do kind of pull the curtain a little bit back on the proposal at the end of one of your off-season episodes, the one where you go to New York. And it must feel good to like have, obviously we'll talk a little bit more about Southern Charm later, but like to have all these people that are still so invested in your life, even though the show isn't happening for you right now.
Yeah, no, it's the feedback on all things like proposal, and it's when things like a proposal, something big happens in your life that you really see how many people are still there with you and are interested, and that's been just like I'm so grateful for it, but it also just makes it that much like, oh, like the people are still like
Yes.
interested. So
It's
no, I've been really
bittersweet, probably.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But yeah, I was really great. I always joke with Alex. I'm like, anytime I put you in my content, my like insight spike. So I'm gonna need you for this next brand deal.
Every post, exactly. So talk to me a little bit about the idea behind doing off season and sort of what the original idea was and sort of how it evolved into what it is and what you're putting out in the world.
Yeah. So well, thanks for asking about it, by the way.
Yeah,
It's
of course.
excited to talk about it. It's honestly been like a really long dream of mine to produce or direct. That was something I was working on when I was living in LA right before I moved to Charleston. I've always loved like behind the scene concept. I'm a big fan of like that series, Making the Movies, and
Yeah.
David Letterman's my Netflix special where it's like my next guest needs no introduction, like that kind of concept, just showing the audience a little bit a side that they don't really get to see from that person. And so with off season, I wanted to create a series that kind of like peeled back the layers of what we know to be mainstream media, whether that's a reality TV personality, an actor, an athlete, and just show their life off camera and like what all comes with that. And having those vulnerable conversations like I had with Kathryn, or talking about someone's journey as to like how they ended up where they are now, which is a lot of what my conversation with Ali this week's episode will be.
Hmm.
And just kind of like creating entertainment around what comes with those human experiences that viewers can relate to. And I just remember like being on Charm, like there's so much that goes into filming that the viewers don't get to see. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Like these lunches or little drink things, dates we do that only show for like 3 minutes on the show, they actually last like
Like
hours.
3 hours, right?
Yeah. And so I remember having that conversation with Shep and Whitney. I was just like, we could have a show based solely on the
About
outtakes.
the show, right?
Yeah, or the bloopers or anything like that. And not to take away from like what Charm's already doing, but it's just like there's just like a lot more in these people that we love and follow. Like I want to see a little bit more of them and like what they're doing. And so that was like the general direction I'm trying to go with it.
Yeah. Well, I think I learned a lot from the Catherine episode, honestly. I watched it this morning and like we watched Kathryn on that show for almost 10 years,
Yeah.
and it was interesting hearing her perspective on it. One, I thought that she has like a much more grounded perspective on reality TV and like the evolution of reality TV and her place in that than I
Yes.
expected her to have, to be honest. Like it really impressed me, honestly, like how she was talking about it. And like
Uh-huh.
it was interesting hearing her talk about how like they didn't make her play a character because what she was on the show was her, but like it
Mhm.
was only that aspect of her, really.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
it was really interesting hearing her talk about that.
No, I agree. And like one of the things, she never really did any press or any kind of interviews
Yeah,
after her departure from the show. And I don't think like podcasts were really what they were now, when she was like first in
right.
it. So I really felt like it was it it was an awesome opportunity to get to see not only her like other sides, like very goofy and like playful, but also see her perspective on it. Like you said, like she never really talked about it. So it was fun getting to like connect with her on that. And also like she is the OG of the show. So
Yeah,
I feel like we had very different experiences on the show, but at the same time, we had a lot of like similar things to like compare and talk about. But that
yeah.
that episode was I definitely I was strategic in having Kathryn's first.
I think that's the perfect way to launch, honestly, because as you said, sort of like she was leaving as you were entering this sort of
Mm-hmm.
ecosystem, and like,
Yeah.
and even like the way that she talked about, being let go from the show, sort of like she said something like, I felt like I was plucked out of Earth by the show for 10 years, and then I was plucked back down into
Got
Earth and
back
like done,
down.
and
Yeah.
and they were like, okay, good luck, bye.
Yeah. No, I know. I
Like
thought that was the perfect metaphor. I was like, wow, I bet. Because it was like her 20, like
her
early
all
20s.
of her 20s, yeah, pretty
Yeah,
much.
yeah, yeah.
Oh my God, it was
So yeah,
wild.
she was great.
And
I hope to see
and
more of her.
Yeah, and there was an interesting exchange that you guys had together was like at one point she talked about how like she watched new people come into the show and be a little bit more produced
It
and
is.
like aware of the cameras and things, and something that she honestly never really it never came across like she knew the cameras were there
Yeah,
in a
yeah.
good way.
Yeah.
And she said that you were sort of pretty much the only female cast member on the show who she felt when she left like was still like that and authentic and not aware of the cameras, and she was complimenting you in that way. But you said that like there were some people who accused you of
Hmm.
that. What can you explain that? Because I don't remember that being accused, you being accused of that.
Yeah, so I went on Jason Tartick's
Yeah.
podcast,
Uh-huh.
and he was just asking me about like the jobs and stuff I had prior to Charm, and a lot of those were in like the entertainment industry, like production
Right.
assistant, and then I was talking about how I did have a time there where I wanted to act, and I just remember the feedback from that comment from like where a lot of people were like, oh my gosh, like she's trying to be an actor, and then obviously on the cast, that was something that like Austin would like try to say to me, be like,
Oh
well, you want to
God.
be an actor. It's just like the perfect like go-to thing. And I'm like, if you know anything about the entertainment industry, which not that I know a ton of, but if you want to be an actor, like jumping into reality TV is a total opposite direction. Like that. So that I was just like responding to that because I was
Well,
and then like in parts, I guess like if there was like inconsistencies, like if I had a conversation with someone on the show, and then off camera was like another way, like people like they would say like, oh, she's acting, and and I think because I had put that out there that I had wanted to act at one point, that was like the first thing they could grab.
but you're right though, because when you go on reality TV, you're defining yourself even more to people as a
Yeah.
person, and so that makes it
Uh-huh.
harder for you to play a character. So it's like,
Agreed. Yeah.
hello.
Yeah. I was like, nope, no, this is not helping me at all. But I also sucked at acting, so I'm really glad I gave that up early on. That's hard.
um, you also have an episode with Ali Luber coming out. We're gonna put the trailer out exclusively tomorrow. That comes out on your YouTube channel this week. So when this comes out, the episode will be available for people. What can people expect from that conversation? Because obviously she has a big transition coming up for herself too.
Yeah. So with Ali, like when I first met her at BravoCon, and then just like a couple other events, and that I just like fell in love with her personality and like
She's so
who she
great.
was. And I just remember thinking like, oh, you don't even get to see this much of her. She's James' girlfriend on the show starting out. Obviously, she's like established more of her character at this point, but so on the show, you get to see more of her personality, and she's hilarious. And she also did my birth chart reading, which I'd never had done
Oh my
before.
God.
I didn't realize she has like a full blown business around that. So that was really cool to kind of show that. And then I got to just like ask her, what the journey was like leading up to Vanderpump. And with that, she got to like address people saying, I guess when people would say like, oh, like she like sought out James or like knew who he was trying to, and she got to kind of like clear that stuff up,
That's good.
tell the story of like how they met and then like what she was doing before. And so it's just really just showing more of her. And
Yeah.
then conversations we have just were super organic, and it's like a chance for her to like really feel like herself and feel like if there is something that she wants to clear up that was said on the show, that was her chance to do that. So she really dives into that. And it was also like we were drinking by the pool at one point, and she's just so much fun to be around. I was like getting a little tipsy and we were getting way off. My videographer Jake was like, he has to like chime in, and he's like, okay, can we get back to this question? I mean, we were there for hours.
I love it. But it is interesting how like, you mentioned what she wanted to clear up about, seeking James out for the show. And,
Yeah.
it's funny how these little things sort of follow a reality star around. It's like, even
Mm-hmm.
if like, it's just, she's been on the show for several years now, and that's still something that gets brought up. And it's just kind of wild that like, it just, the one seed gets planted and like
It's that
people
one seat
will,
and it's it. Yeah. And it's like there's nothing. And also it's like being on a show, you don't really get to put in whatever time you want or explanation you want. Like you don't have the control of how what's gonna be on the final cut. So there's also that added frustration of like, and you don't really want to like turn your energy to your social media and having to like clear up every
right.
misconception. But like big things like that, like you said, that are just following her around that aren't really accurate. It was cool to like give her that opportunity to do that.
Have you connected with her since last week when they announced that they're recasting Vanderpump Rules?
I just texted with her briefly. I kind of feel like, I don't know. I mean, I feel like there was that sense in the air for a few of
Yeah.
them. I think like it was
Yeah,
kind of,
it wasn't it's like what I've been saying, it's like it's not surprising, but it's still shocking. You know what I
yeah,
mean? Like,
yes. That's the perfect way to put it. And I didn't realize it was a whole reboot. I thought it was just done. So then when I
no,
saw the thing, I was like,
like
no,
Lisa will still be at the restaurant with her employees, they just won't be those people, which is like kind of crazy to think about.
but Lisa's returning.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Wow, that'll be interesting.
I know. I know. But it's like but in particular for Ali, I'm like everybody fell in love with Ali and we
Mhm.
were just getting to know her and it's like,
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
I know that you know that, but like it's like,
that
but yeah,
that is like that's kind of what I was like wanting to do with off season. Obviously, when we filmed this, it was before knowing that Vanderpump
yeah,
was um, making that reboot. But it just and she's so creative and like is putting herself out there in so many different ways that like I don't think we'll be seeing the last of her or a lot of them for that matter.
I agree with you. Circling back to what we were saying before, do you feel like there's been something that's followed you around since your 2 seasons on Charm? Like, do you like, I don't know, like even if it's like a connection to Austin, it's like you always are gonna have that in some
Oh, I'm
ways,
always going to have the what the fuck were you thinking thing. And like random people in the airport will say that to me now. I'm
Oh
like,
God.
I get it. The laugh
Yeah.
suggestion. No, but yeah, I think, and I spoke about this on with Sheena, like the the way in which like this season ended, it just sucked that like I was gonna be the girl that like couldn't get over a drunken kiss going out. You know what I mean? Like that's probably like been the most frustrating part of it all is like, oh wow, that's like that's my last stamp on it is like the girl who couldn't get past something like that. And but I do think, that plus like I think anyone that's like an Austin love interest, like that's always gonna kind of stay
Yeah.
with you at
But
some
that says more about his sort of track record, I think, than like you,
yeah.
you
Thank
know?
you. Thanks for saying that.
I mean, I really think that it's like, I don't know. I mean, so it's no secret that I do not agree with the decision that was made in terms of not asking you back to the show. I've made that very clear publicly. And like,
I
I think
love
that
you
you've
for
seen
that. Thank
that. Yeah.
you.
And like,
Yes.
most of the feedback that I get when I say that is like people agreeing with me. And I know that, you know, I guess first, have you felt support from people since you broke that news on Sheena's podcast, like that people don't agree with what was decided?
Yeah, I mean, the Instagram for sure, like the response to the Sheena's podcast, I did. I felt like there were a lot of people who vocalized like their confusion with it, and I really appreciated that. And I think it's hard because I don't know, it's just like the way in which it happened, and then it's like I get this weird point where I'm like, well, I don't want to talk on it too much because then
Right.
it looks like I'm like a sore loser, and it's nothing like that. I'm very, very appreciative of it, but I've really like having other people like tell me that, of course, I'm like, thank you so much. Like I appreciate it because it's easy to, when you get like cut off, to feel like you're the odd person out and whatnot. So it's been really nice like having people.
Well, it also confirms that like you're not crazy for thinking that like you made your mark on the show and you were doing it correctly. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like
Yeah.
you connected with people, you know?
Yes, that's true. That's true. And that's what I love to hear. Like that there was like a connection, like I made an impact, and yeah, like hearing that they were surprised as well. I'm like, okay, well that's good. I'm not the only one.
Who from the cast has been the most supportive since that was decided?
Vanita and Leva, I'm still very close with, and they were touching base with
Great.
me throughout the entire time. The guys, Shep and Craig and Whitney also, like they reached out when all this was going on, and I'd say those mostly.
Okay. And because it's this weird thing because it's like at least what you've said is that you were told that it was they sort of deemed that you weren't spending enough time in Charleston and you had
Yeah.
this boyfriend, your parents moved to Texas, but you had also just signed an apartment in Charleston and like
Yeah,
like you still had some roots there and
for sure.
like so and it's like, Madison's boyfriend for a while lived in California and so it doesn't like do you feel like that was the reason that you were given, not the real reason, or like what can you I don't know.
Yeah, I do think I think because I mean, when we were done filming, like no one really spends a ton of time in Charleston. Like Benita splits her time between New York and
Right.
Charleston. Shep travels the world. Like that's just so that didn't make much sense to me. And then yeah, like you said, with the when they threw out like, oh, you have this boyfriend, you're in this relationship now. Madison got engaged to her guy before anyone ever saw anything about him. So that obviously didn't add up to me. So I couldn't help but think like there was like other reasons, or maybe they do want single girls on there. I think they do like the girls
Right.
interacting with the guys, and I was just bummed because I was like, well, I feel like that happened already with me, and not that that was like the reason it happened, but it's just kind of like, well, I mean, there's other things. I just felt like I had already like established myself and that I didn't need to be dating or involved with one of the guys. But I don't know, I guess it wasn't
Yeah.
like drama for me.
But yeah, it's sort of like you can get on the hamster wheel of like, okay, who's next kind of thing.
Yeah.
But like, I also think that there's something to be said about bringing in, you met Alex outside of the show environment, and like, who knows if he would have been down to be on the show or whatever. But like,
Right. But
you
just
could have
like
brought him
bring
into the
in,
fold.
yeah, exactly. And like the friendships I have with them are real, and the relationships I have are real. So and like reunion obviously kind of set the tone for new friendships and new relationships. So I thought like that made sense for starting a
Right.
new season to explore those. And it's kind of like new dynamics versus like, bringing in totally new people that don't know anyone else on the cast except for maybe one person, like that. Yeah, that just from like a producer side, if
Yeah.
I'm confused by that much of it, but I
Totally.
yeah.
Yeah. So you think it really came down to like relationship status, which is kind of wild to
Yeah, I
think about.
think, I mean,
Yeah, I could see
like
it because
there's
that's
just
on Summer House. It happens all the time.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So that's what I
Yeah.
would say. I don't think I
Yeah.
was given like the verbatim exactly like what the reason was. I think those were just like used
Got
to
it.
like soften
Yeah.
it.
And I'm not trying to get you in trouble, but like, is it hard to talk about it in a way that's like really like how you're feeling and all that, but also not like shitting on the show and shitting on production because like you obviously made good connections there too,
Yeah, of
and you don't
course.
want
No,
to like that's a hard balance to strike, is all I'm trying to say.
no, yeah, 100%. And like even when I was going on to do Sheena's podcast, I was so nervous because I just didn't. There's like it's a very slippery slope not to sound like jaded and
Hmm.
sore loser or ungrateful or angry, but also letting it be known like, well, here's what's here's how it went down. And it is like a slippery slope to like talk about it and um not sound like I'm
Like
just,
bitter. Yeah.
yeah, bitter. Like, but that's why I was just like honest when I was asked, like, yes, I'm bummed. No, it wasn't my decision. I wasn't about to go on there and be like, ugh, well,
Of
I don't
course not.
like it. It wasn't fun. Like, no, it was a blast. I loved it. And I would have totally done it again. So I try to like keep it as honest as I can to not sound like I'm
Yeah.
jaded
Be
and
diplomatic though. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Do you feel like there's at all an open door, like a crack in that in like it's not a completely shut door for you in terms of like a potential return in a season or two?
Yeah, I mean there were no like burned bridges leaving. There was no
Good.
bad blood with my departure, and that was like the last thing they said to me. Like the door is always open. We're just going in this new direction, and it's the same for me with that. Like I'm starting new things, but I'm very grateful and appreciative of it. And like I said, I had a blast with it, so I never want to say never on it. And there's certainly no ill will on my end with that.
Good, good. Well, I feel like, and just kind of closing a loop on this, is like I was at BravoCon in Vegas and like I was at the Southern Charm panel. And obviously there was like interpersonal stuff going on that stage, but like ultimately you could feel the energy behind you in that room. And obviously, and that's not to say about like team this, team that. Like it just felt like really supportive of you, I
Oh, thank you
think,
for
on
saying
that,
that.
in that, like, and you must have, that was like
It,
kind of an electric environment in there.
the one where we're all is like the all
It was the
cast.
whole cast.
Yeah.
Yep. That was
I
quite
know
the event, but
exactly which one
like,
you're talking about.
yeah, like it was, I remember it. And it was one of the highlight panels, I think, of the weekend, to be
Oh
honest.
my gosh. Wow. We need to talk more often. You're just gassing me up. I need
And I'm
to,
not even trying to do that. I just think
no,
that
I
like
know,
I
but
think that last season of Southern Charm was like its best in a very long time, and that's part of what added to the confusion on my end. I'm like, wait a second, we had this like great cast who was like flowing, and we had a love triangle, and it's good reality. So that's why I'm just like,
yeah. Well,
you
I
know,
appreciate you saying that and like your support in it all, but yeah, I
you're
was
at,
with you. It's just
yeah,
like
but you're at, you seem like pretty at peace with it too.
I am. It took me a while. Like
Yeah,
it took me, some time to get there, but I am now.
good, good. So you're obviously laying the groundwork for a life outside of the show, and both personally and professionally with off season, and then you're beginning this journey on YouTube. What is sort of on the vision board for like what direction that goes in, or how what you can continue to make it into?
Well, for off season, like I obviously my first go around first season is very Bravo affiliated. I definitely capitalize on the connections that I had through
Good, you
being on
should.
the show, and I'm very grateful for the people that I met through it. So that's while that's the first season, like the bigger goal and dream is to pull from like athletes, actors, like honestly anyone like in the spotlight that has like a passion and that's really what I would like love to see. And like that's the goal for off season. And like I'm learning a lot as I go. Like it's trial and error each episode. And I watch it back and I'm like, oh, I wish I had asked this or I could have done this. But I just kind of take that with me and want to take it into like the next season and to kind of grow it into something bigger. And like YouTube, it's been like a crash course for
It's
YouTube. I
crazy.
didn't Yeah, like I'm learning so much about it. Like my producer and videographer, he's much younger than me, thank God, because he's like with the shits when it comes to YouTube. So there's a lot there to learn and there's a lot of growth. And I just want to pull in kind of like branch out outside of the Bravo realm. Once I get a little more confident with what I'm my interviewing skills.
Well, you can make it like a well-oiled machine, basically, and
Yeah,
like it's also like the Bravo thing. It's always an itch you can scratch. You know what I mean? You can always
always
do
yeah,
like
there's always
you
something
can have a
there.
Bravo guest every season, but it doesn't have to be as Bravo heavy if you don't want it to
Right,
be.
right, exactly. And I want to, because I mean, even talking to these people like Kathryn, one of the questions I wish I had asked her and didn't was like, what's next? Like, what do you want to do next? Because we've talked about this plenty of times off camera, and I just didn't think in the moment to ask her that. But like, so many people, they're so creative and they're working on these other things. And that, like, I want to show that. I want to show that part of it that you didn't get to see when they were on their show.
Hmm.
So yeah, certainly never closing off the Bravo door. I'm going to be dipping into those contacts as much as I can.
It's the gift that keeps on giving,
It is
please.
the gift that keeps on giving. Yeah.
And you gave me an advanced look at your New York episode, which ends with the proposal, but you it shows you getting ready and going to the Project Lime Gala where you got to honor your brother. And I thought what was really cool about that moment was like I remember obviously everything that happened and it being documented on last season on the show. And it was cool to see in this episode of Off Season, like how much more confident and like empowered you are to talk about what your family went through and honoring him. You know what I mean? I feel like
Yeah.
it's clear that you're it's going to become even more and more of a thing that like you can speak about and honor him and lean into that.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for saying that. That compliment is huge for me because it really was a work in progress. Like with it coming out on when we were filming, it just I felt very like out of control with like what was talked about, when was talked about it, and that was
Right.
really hard for like my for me and my parents, like making sure they were okay with it. I felt very like we just didn't have much, even though they like Charm, Bravo, they did a great job with the episode, but like it just opened it up to that public forum that like we weren't prepared for. And I didn't realize, but like it just it was like a blockage. Like I didn't want to do anything past that point. Like I didn't want to post on Instagram. I didn't, fundraisers had reached out about Lyme disease and I wasn't ready to do that. My parents weren't. And so once I like really did the work and I have an incredible life coach. It's like a form of therapy.
Hmm.
And like we really dealt with like the grief, which I had put off for so long because we're doing green screens well after we're done shooting. So like I'm having to go back and like put myself back in that place. So I didn't really do the work for me to get better and like heal. And so when I was completely done with the show that I really gave that time to myself to finally find that confidence because it went from me not even being comfortable to post to I was excited to be a part of Project Lime and like I want to do more and talk about it more and just in our own terms. And that's what that episode of Off Season is. It's like me and my parents traveling there together and meeting with the Project Lime people. And there's a very like intimate moment with me and my dad when he's helping me write my
Yeah.
speech. And it just felt like this is a way to honor him. It's not clickbait. It's not selling a story. It's like it's just showing who he was and what Project Lime means to us in like our terms and in our way. And it really did take me a while to get there. So I appreciate you saying that.
Yeah,
And
of course. And in some ways you can think of it as like a silver lining of the charm journey ending for right now, at least. And
sure.
like it giving you time to, because I have heard people on some of these shows talk about how like when something happens in their life that's really tough and traumatic, you put off dealing with it
Oh,
because the
sure.
cameras and everything demands so much of you and so much of
Yeah.
your energy that like it makes sense that it gets put on the back burner actually dealing with the emotions of it and stuff.
100%. And it's like I got really, really good at compartmentalizing. I
Yeah.
mean, there's episodes I watch back and like there's conversations I'm having that it's just it was wild to see how well I was able to just like close it
Right.
off and not talk about it and then talk about something over here that really doesn't mean anything to me, but it's just and that kind of became my like coping mechanism. And then when it got to that point where I just didn't even know how to move forward, that's when I realized like, oh, I actually didn't grieve. I actually
Unresolved.
yeah, and that's why like after filming, I went and spent time in Texas with my family because during filming, I didn't have any time to grieve. I wasn't with them at all. And so I was like, yeah, sorry, I left to go spend that time with them. But
Right.
so yeah, it
It's
is
another,
like
yeah.
full
Yeah.
circle and it's a blessing in disguise. And also like there's footage of me and my brother that aired last season that we wouldn't have if it weren't for Bravo, and they really handled the whole thing so well and were very like hands-on with checking in with us, and I appreciate them and I'll always
Yeah.
appreciate them for that.
That's great to hear. And I think that just from what we saw of it, it was also really beautifully handled as well. But
Yeah,
it's glad to
very
hear
much
that from
so.
your perspective, you felt that as well. Because
Yeah.
again, especially because when some of these like again more intense traumatic things happen on these shows, like I think there's always the faction of people who are like, oh, this is like exploitative or this is like milking it. But like I don't think that it was handled in that way at all.
No, no, and my family and I like neither we didn't feel that way
Good.
either. We were really, really appreciative of how they went about it and just even including that clip. Like they didn't have to include that
Mm-mm.
clip, and I'm so grateful that they did. So there was the healing that I needed to do was just like me on a personal level, but the I yeah,
Yeah,
very
good.
grateful for them in that.
Good.
Yeah.
All right, Olivia, to end it, there is a new season of Southern Charm coming up. Are you going to watch it, or is that too soon?
Um, I don't think I'll be as invested as I was these last few seasons, but I do want to show up and show support for my friends that are still on it. So definitely will see a couple, and even my phone in these last few years is so tangled up in its algorithms and the Bravo realm that like even if I didn't want to watch it, that's
Unavoidable.
yeah. So
Yeah,
but no, yeah, I'll won't be tuning in all the way through, but definitely will catch a bit of
keeping
it.
tabs. And
Yeah.
then, so I actually just had Vanita on, and she was we talked about how she wants you back on the show. But the other thing, obviously, is that JT just abruptly quit the show.
Yeah.
What was your reaction to that?
So at the beginning, when they first started filming, JT was really uh, trying to get me to like come back in some way. And I was like, JT, I don't think it's either one of our decisions, but I
Right.
appreciate your effort. But I do remember him telling me that it was difficult. Like the season that was like what was happening was really hard, and he was struggling with it. So I wasn't that surprised just going off of the few conversations we had at the beginning, but I'm with everyone else. I don't know why I haven't talked to him since. And so I'm curious to see like what it was that unfolds that made him come to that decision. Cause
Totally.
he is always on one and ready for the camera. So for him to just totally call it quits, I think
A
says a lot.
lot. Yeah. Last thing, an idea that a lot of fans have is like, let's do, they have Real Housewives Ultimate Girls Trip where it's like women from all the different shows. Everyone's been wanting them to do an Ultimate Girls Trip up for like the younger shows. So like Vanderpump, Southern Charm, Summer House. Would you do that?
Oh, totally. Oh my
That'd be
gosh.
fun, right?
Yes. That would be so fun for
Who
sure.
who
I would
would you
love
want to be
that.
on that with you?
I'd be pulling heavy from Vanderpump. Sheena, Ariana, Ali, and then I love Paige. Paige
Uh,
would love to have her there. Lindsay, I never and Sierra. I think that would be like a
that'd be a good
solid
group.
group.
Good group.
Yeah,
Well, Olivia, this has been so much fun to catch up with you
it
and just
has.
to hear all about life after the show for you. I'm excited for more people to tune into off season and to. I mean, I particularly again really loved the Kathryn episode, Ali episode out this week. So, is it
Um,
new episodes every Thursday?
every Thursday. Yeah, yeah,
Awesome on your YouTube channel.
on the YouTube channel. Yeah, thank you so much for promoting it and talking about it and getting
Of
hype around it.
course,
I really, really appreciate your
of
support.
course, of course. I think it's really cool what you're doing, and more
You.
people are gonna love it. So, Olivia, thanks for doing this.
Thanks, Gibbs. I appreciate it.
I want to gab.